Welcome to the Mission Complete podcast. My name is Brian Robison.
I'm Andy Hart.
And we are the owners of Mission Merch. It's a custom wholesale screen printing company.
Do you know what it is?
I do it. I don't know how to explain it. It's fine. We do merch for artists, churches, businesses, anyone actually. We would love to help
not
you.
Anyone.
Well, I mean most, okay?
Bulk printing.
All people love shirts, so if you need some shirts.
And all people wear shirts.
I hope so.
Fact. Well, 80% of
Let
people
us
do.
help you.
Yeah.
Help me help you. Anyway, we are excited about today's episode. We have the one and only Christy Wright with us today. And man, we talked about many things, and it was spitfire, I feel like, with the amount of topics that we talked about,
Yes.
what we covered. We covered her life. We covered what God is doing right now, how to hear the voice of the Lord, what the prophetic looks like, how to be a mom in business. I don't know, you name it. So what did you think about it?
She talks really fast, which is great.
Not Gilmore Girl fast.
No, not
but
that fast. Yeah. But no, she covered a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
We did talk about how to balance everything as a mom, as an entrepreneur. I think, as a whole, like we kind of concluded at the end of this, like we need more women on the podcast. Because, it's easy as men to have only men on the podcast, but I think Christy was so great and brought such a fresh perspective and made it kind of more relatable towards women and how to juggle all the things. We talked about seasons of motherhood and just where her kids are at and what the last season looked like and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, a few tears.
Yeah, a few tears, just God's provision for us, and then also what's coming up for her and her business. So if you are like in business, or if you're a mom in business specifically, she has a bunch of resources for you and things coming out this fall that would really, really help you. So, let's dive in, and I really think you're going to like today's episode.
Enjoy.
Special guest, Christy Wright.
Yeah.
So thankful to have you on. It's like what are we doing?
I don't know. Like, how did this happen?
Yeah, so
very
super
exciting.
thankful. But yeah, we are grateful just for relationships and just the connection.
Yeah.
And can't even this is this real life.
I know.
Y'all, I'm so excited to be here. We were just, chatting even before we started recording, and I just love, you can tell when you click with people where you love the Lord and you love the work that you do, and it's just easy conversation. So I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
So grateful to be here.
And when you've both been to the Brentwood Skate Center, there's
100.
a special kind of
We go way
bond.
back.
Yes.
We're
it's
best
like,
friends.
wow.
Absolutely.
We might have been there at the same time. And you wouldn't have known.
That's kind. That's kind. I'm much older than you guys. That's very, very
I don't
generous
know.
of you.
I don't know. We all look very young. Thank you.
Brian's 62.
Yeah, it's fine. I just dye my hair. And that's really all you got to do.
So
kidding.
one thing we like to do with every guest is just kind of catch us up to how did you become Christy Wright sitting in this chair? Just kind of the cliff notes as it pertains to your story.
Okay.
What are some defining moments that got you to where you are now?
Oh, I love that. Okay, defining moments. Okay, I'll give you a couple highlights, and you can dig into anything you want to.
Sure.
So my mom and dad were both entrepreneurs, and so I was raised very entrepreneurial, and I'm creative. So as soon as I could work, I worked. I worked at mom's shop. Growing up, she had a cake shop. I got a job when I was 15. I was working even before that. So I've always loved to work, loved business, and so on.
Yeah.
And so when I got my first job out of college, it was at the local newspaper. And I thought, I want to work in advertising, work in an agency. I'm really creative.
Sure.
And I realized that was not what that was. Yeah. Okay. Gray walls, gray cubicles, you died a little inside every day.
Yeah.
And so y'all lasted 3 months. It's
No
so
way.
embarrassing.
I think that's a long time too.
I'm a very hard worker, guys, but this
was that your first official job?
It was my first official job.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget what the lady sitting across from me said when I gave her my 2 weeks notice after truly 3 months.
Oh gosh.
And she said to me, I don't understand, Christy. Do you just not want to work? And if you know me, anybody that knows me knows I love to work. It's in my DNA. In fact, I can lean towards being a workaholic a little bit because I just love to work hard. And I didn't know how to word it at that time at the age of 22, but I thought, I love to work.
Yeah.
But this isn't it for me.
Yeah.
And so I love that I had the courage to walk away from that. Yeah. Thankfully, I had a mom and a cake shop that said, come work for me, in the meantime, until you figure it out. Cool. But that was a defining moment because I realized I do love to work, but work doesn't have to be misery. Mm-hmm. Work can be purposeful. Work can be using my gifts. This isn't it. This lady that was sitting across the desk had worked at that newspaper for 40 years.
Oh, wow.
And I just thought,
right.
I don't want to be you.
Yeah,
This is not it for me.
And she's living her
thought
best
she was
life.
at the pinnacle, like
Yeah.
top, then thinking someone's walking away from this
Right.
huge opportunity.
Right. And I think so many people just accept that work is work.
Yeah.
Like you just get a paycheck because you
Yeah.
have to do it. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't feel like that has to be it.
Or you trade your time for money all the time. And it's
Right.
like, you can, and people do that. I'm like very thankful for people that do that.
Right.
But I think there's other ways too, which sounds like kind of what you started to step
Yeah.
into.
Yeah. I thought it can be better than this.
Yeah.
And so I worked for Mom for a little bit. Ended up working in nonprofit for the YMCA in Nashville for a few years. And when I felt that season ending, because as much as I love nonprofit, and I know we've got a lot of nonprofits represented here, nonprofit can burn you out quick because
so
the work is never done
fast.
Yep.
and the money is tough.
Yep.
And so I'm making less per hour than my lifeguards are making. I'm working 80 hours a week. I had no life and I was
What
just
was your role?
exhausted.
What'd you do?
I was the aquatics director.
Okay.
And I was over 2 different centers, had a huge staff team, and it was awesome. But when you're at a center that's open 104 hours a week, like you're on all the time. Someone's always calling in sick. My 5 a.m. lifeguard's not there. Someone's making out in the pump room. There's always a problem. Okay, when you're dealing with teenagers, there's always a problem. And so
Probably Brian.
I was never a lifeguard.
this
but,
is real life.
Yeah.
So after 3 years of this, I really. So after
pooped in the pool again.
always that's a
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah.
So after 3 years of this, I really felt like I want a life. I want a normal schedule, an 8 to 5 schedule, just some type of boundaries around my time
Sure.
where I could actually, I don't know, date, have friendships,
Yeah.
be a young adult in my 20s.
Yeah.
And so I remember I was standing on my deck and I was praying, and it was kind of those just conversations with God where it wasn't like a meditation, prayer, focus in scripture, but I just said to the Lord, God, I don't feel like I'll ever find a company I believe in as much as the YMCA. I love that we change lives.
Yeah.
I love that we do work that matters. That was so drastically different from what I'd felt at the newspaper. I love that I did work that mattered. And I felt the Lord say, this is one of the very first times I remember words entering my mind. So when I say the Lord said, I want to be clear here, it's not an audible voice, but a sentence entered my mind that was so distinctly foreign it could not have been my own.
Yeah. That's good.
A sentence entered my mind that said, you're going to work for Dave Ramsey. And I
No
thought,
way.
great, who is Dave Ramsey? Had no
No
idea who it
way.
was. True story.
So
Well, my
cool.
laptop was sitting over on the table next to me on my deck, and I walked over and Googled Dave Ramsey, and it said based in Nashville, Tennessee. You know, one of the first things that pops up is location. And I thought, fantastic, I don't have to move. He's right here. And that became a defining moment of applying for a job there. Ended up getting hired as a youth project coordinator over the kids' Bible studies and books and T-shirts. I went to merch tables at youth workers
that's
conferences.
hilarious. Been there.
Oh, all
Been there.
been there.
Yep.
People are coming by to get the free stuff, you know, get the pencils and the keychains or whatever. And I did that for about 4 years. And after a series of different just wild doors that the Lord opened for me, ended up stepping into a role speaking for the company. And that turned into my full-time thing where I was a full-time speaker. That turned into becoming an author, building brands, leading a podcast. That turned into everything everyone knows me as today, author, speaker, and so on. But so much of my foundation for 12 years was at Ramsey, learning from truly the very best of the best. And I look back now after having been gone 2 years, because the Lord called me to leave about 2.5 years ago, which is a whole nother story. But when I look back, I see, wow, God placed me in one of the most concentrated sources of business expertise, finance expertise, leadership expertise, entrepreneurship expertise, marketing, creative, events, coaching. One of the most, they're the best of the best in almost every one of these industries. And I got to learn from the best of the best. And so much of that was God showing me who I am. And then 2.5 years ago, when I was just feeling real comfortable, by the way, God was like, hey, by the way, the season is up, and He's since called me to go out on my own. So that's where we are today. Those are the high points, the milestones.
Okay, I heard somebody say, I feel like this was the other day, that there was an event that Rachel Cruz was supposed to speak at, and she was sick.
Oh no!
Is that what happened?
No, not close, but not exactly.
Okay.
So
you know how rumors are.
If we're talking about the same story, in 2009 I started at Ramsey. In 2010, Rachel was graduating college. So
Okay.
she is a college student. She's a
Okay.
senior. She's
Sure.
going to graduate that spring. And someone in our department had organized where she was going to go speak at the Christ and Youth
Okay.
Move Conference, which
Yeah.
is 20 different dates all over the country, different small towns, college campuses.
CIY.
She was going, she was going to go speak at these, and they'd worked it all out.
Sure.
She's still in college. They've worked out the agreement. Somehow it gets handed off to me because I'm over youth products. Well, you can just handle this
sure.
relationship. So I get the travel schedule 2 weeks before she's supposed to go on the road, a different state every single day.
Yeah.
And the travel schedule, y'all, is a nightmare.
No.
Like, we're not bougie, but you're talking about like you're going to New York to California to get to Texas. You're in an airport 18 hours
No.
a day to get on a church van for 2
No.
hours, to speak,
I can't do
to
that.
sleep
I'm
in a
so
dorm,
angry right now.
to come back. Like, it was nuts.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
because this had been handed off to me, I had to go to Dave Ramsey, her dad,
Yeah.
and our CEO,
Yeah,
and
right.
get this approved.
Yeah.
I've been at the company 6 months. I'm 25
No
or 26
way.
years old, working in a cubicle managing piggy banks. I don't even know how I got in this
Sure.
position.
Yeah.
So I go to Dave. He says no. He says, this is more than we agreed to. She just
Yeah.
graduated college. This is no.
Yeah.
He said she can do 10 of the 20 dates, and they can pick the 10, but she's not doing the schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to be the bearer of bad news. I go back to the conference. Now, I'm a very, like, fly by the seat of my pants kind of girl. Like, I'm not a real, like, plan 20 steps ahead. I'm just like, we'll figure it out when we get there. It'll be great. So I hadn't really
Seems
thought
like
through.
it's working.
Noted. Yeah, that's good.
Take notes there.
Okay, start to be like Christy.
So I get on the phone call, and I have not thought past just telling them bad news. I'm like, I just got to do
Sure.
it, right?
Yeah.
I'm an Enneagram 8. Being direct is one of my sweet spots. I'm like, hey, I'm so
Right.
sorry.
Right.
She's not going to be able to do it. This is more than we agreed to.
Yeah.
She can do 10, and you can pick the 10. You're welcome. Go ahead and pick those 10 dates. I know you're excited, but she can't do 20. And he said to me, Christy, I don't have her booked for 10 keynote presentations. I have her booked for 20.
Yeah.
What am I going to do for those other 10 dates? And I
Yeah.
said, I'll do them. And he said, can you speak? I said, I think so.
No way.
I've never spoken in my life.
Are you kidding me? I do have a friend that is an 8, and that she has said to me, she's like, I get in a situation, I've never played the guitar before, but I'll pick it up and be like, I got this. It's fine, you know? And like, there's something about the confidence,
confidence.
that comes with it that's actually really special.
I think it's this.
I have the exact opposite. I'm like, no.
Here's what I'll say, because everybody says I'm so confident, which I appreciate. If that's a compliment, I agree that it's true. Here's what I think it is. It's a willingness to learn on the job.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't need to
yeah.
take a class on speaking. I'll figure out how to do it while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting is that life experience is such a more powerful teacher than classroom or textbook or theory anyway.
Yeah, for
sure.
And so I feel like my career, if you want to like step back and analyze it, has been so much quote unquote faster because I'm willing to just go for things that
Just
I'm totally
do it.
unqualified for.
Yeah.
But I learned how to do it on the job. And so yes, I have natural gifting, but I say this to women all the time, specifically women.
Yeah.
Because research shows that women tend to apply for jobs. Women apply for jobs if they have 100% of the qualifications, whereas men apply if they only have 60%. Men figure out, hey, I'll fill the 40% while I'm on the job. I'll figure it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And women are going, I got to wait till I have 100% proof that I can do this before I apply. So they miss out on so many opportunities.
Yeah.
If you look back at that moment with this guy
Sure.
that I'm on the phone, and he said, what am I going to do? And I said, I'll do them. And he said, can you speak? I said, I think so. I did not ask permission from Dave Ramsey. I
Sure.
did not ask
Yeah.
permission from anyone in our company.
Yep.
I just said yes and solved the problem. I'm like, well, I'll fix
Yep.
this problem for you.
There's this gap in.
Yeah, and
instead of filling
I'll fill it. I said yes before I knew how.
Mm-hmm.
I said yes to the opportunity before I knew how to do it, and I learned how to do it by doing it.
Yeah.
So God will often, if we want to even look at scripture models here, God will often give you opportunities that you are unqualified for,
Yeah. Yep.
but you learn how to do it as you're doing it. So say
That's
yes
100%.
before you know how to do it
I
So
mean,
good.
instead of waiting.
I feel like that's like literally where we sit
Golly.
with this business and
Yeah.
even this podcast. That
If
was
you
not
told
our
us
dream.
a year ago you're going to be doing a podcast,
Right.
you're going to have Christy Wright on, I'll be like, you're literally insane.
Why?
Like,
I mean, that would have been my why?
Right.
But yeah,
that doesn't even make sense.
it
And-
was Anyway.
it doesn't make sense with our business. I'm like, but now, I'm
Right.
like, it totally makes sense.
Right.
Anyway.
And
Yeah.
so there's just such and we were talking about this even before we started recording. There's such adventure and growth and faith
Yep.
that happens in the gap between the 60% of your qualifications and
Sure.
Yeah.
the opportunity that requires more of you. And so I said yes. I went on the road that summer. And
Did you have the horrible day? Like the
I went to
flight
every
dates
date.
and all-
Oh yeah, I went to every date. So I would go to Rachel's events and I would carry the props and run AV in the back of the room of the sound booth. And then I would leapfrog to the next event with the props and do the talk. And then I would go to the next event and meet her. And I did the whole schedule.
Awesome.
That's one way to die. That's
not what I was going to say.
Now it seems awesome. At the time, Rachel and I could tell you stories for days of that summer. We became besties that summer.
Yeah.
So that fall, our company, because at the time, Dave Ramsey, it was just Dave Ramsey. It was not Ramsey Solutions. There were no personalities. It was like 250 people in the company. But they realized...
This was when he was in Cool Springs, right?
Yes. It was much smaller at the time. Yeah. So Dave was turning down 3,000 speaking requests a year. And they're like, there's an opportunity here.
Yes.
So they create what's called the Ramsey Speakers Group. And it was 5 men and 2 women, me and Rachel Cruz. And they just literally slid me in this group. No audition, no application, nothing. So I was still...
Sounds like there was no backlash from you jumping in.
No! I got away with so much stuff there, y'all, because I just had the nerve to either ask or go for it, And sometimes it looked like that. Sometimes it was ask forgiveness, not permission. Sometimes it was literally sitting across the table from Dave, and he is like, this idea is terrible. I'm like, this idea will work. He's like, I hate it. I'm like, you're not my audience. And we would go back and forth on an idea.
So good.
And I would fight for this idea, and the idea it, y'all. Sometimes it didn't. Sometimes I totally lost. But sometimes I did. And so what's interesting is, even if you analyze that from like a very practical perspective, Dave and I are wired very similar.
Got it.
And so when you're in an organization, the culture will flow from the personality that is at the top.
Sure.
And so it favors boldness. It favors nerve and fighting for your idea. Like we would walk out of those rooms, whether I won or lost, it was allowed. It was allowed to like fight for your idea.
Sounds like he respected you more if you could take a few punches and
I
then
think
also
so.
give a few punches.
Oh, I think so. Like, and you just. I think this is true in any business, though, y'all. There's certain qualities that I learned from that organization that have made me such a better leader, and even risk taker. But also some of them that I think are maybe more natural for me. You can't be so sensitive. Like take what you get. So I'll give you a great example. Okay. I was joking with one of my girlfriends about this the other day. So we would be in a meeting I'll use the example of my planner, my goal planner. Okay, he hated this idea. We put samples in front of him, and he literally would not touch the samples. Like he used his pencil to like push it across the table at me. He hated this planner so much. He hated this planner. But I went back and forth on how my audience are planner users.
And you had been working on this for...
Well, this is all part of the like approval stage. You have to get it approved before you go like create the thing. So we're trying to get the concept approved so that we can go create it. Okay, so we go back and forth. He tells me why it's terrible. He won't even touch it. And I remind him...
It was a 10-foot pole, but it was like a...
It's just a pencil. He just wouldn't touch it.
He still wouldn't touch it.
Yeah, so we're going back and forth, and he's like, he hates everything about it. I remind him he's not my target audience. I remind him of the other things that have come up. So finally, here's how the meeting ends, okay? He said, because I think the cost of goods in the planner at the time, who knows what it is now, but at the time, the original planner, the concept we were working on was around $6 for cost of goods into this planner. Okay, so we were going to order for a first year, we were going to order, I don't know, maybe 10,000. Okay, that was our proposal. So finally in the meeting, we're back and forth, and he's just silent, and like when you're in those rooms, especially with a big personality like Dave, and he's silent, like you so in your discomfort want to fill the gap. Like, but if you don't want to, it's okay, but it's fine, but never mind, it's actually a terrible idea. Let me just gather these and get out of here. But you just got to sit there, man. You just got to sit there and like, I told my audience, I was like, you just got to like hold.
That's
just
good.
Hold.
Gosh.
Let the silence hang. Let him think. Oh, you do. In your nervous energy, you just talk. Instead, I would just sit there. And so finally he says, I think you're going to lose $60,000, but you can do it. And I said, all I heard was yes. And I gathered my planners and I was at it. Take your yes. It's an angry yes. It's a begrudging yes. But take your yes. So I think that there's so often we just want everybody to just like coddle our emotions and like, are you sure you feel okay? Well, if you don't feel okay, I don't want to. No. And take your yes. Take your yes and get out of there.
So talk about like, we talked about the adventure of faith slightly before we started recording. But catch us up, too, because you got a very specific word to start working for Dave, and then now you're on your own, and faith is a huge part of what you do and what you talk about and who you are. But what about the gap? Like, were you exercising your faith the whole time at Ramsey? What did you feel the Lord navigating you in relationships and like different positions you were in?
Oh, for sure. And it was so easy there because they're all believers. And so we would have a Wednesday devotional. Prayer was a normal part of our rhythms. I mean, I would be in meetings and we would just feel stuck on something. And I would say, we need to stop and pray. Like, God has the answer to this. Like, we don't have an answer. God has the answer. And so it like, what an unbelievable culture, organization, like almost like incubator for me of being able to live out my faith in a for-profit, unapologetically successful and excellent company. Because I really thought before I worked there that if you were going to do work that mattered, it had to be nonprofit. I had this idea in my head that nonprofit is holy and for-profit is evil. And I learned so much from Dave of like even literally the nonprofit is a tax status. The government does not dictate the holiness of your work. So for me to learn what this blend looks like was really powerful. So I always felt, and the other thing, I remember Dave saying specifically, we're telling all the Dave story. I remember Dave saying something specifically. We were looking at the content for Business Boutique. It was a 3-day event. I wrote lots of the sessions. We had guest speakers, but I carried a lot of that event. And my fear talk, my talk on fear and building confidence and doing it scared, all of that was, I mean, it was a sermon. Like it was scripture. And I can't remember what the context was for this conversation, but we were either getting the workbook approved or we were putting something in front of Dave and someone said something about how heavy scripture, I don't know, they just called it out. It wasn't a negative at all, but I'll never forget what Dave said. He said, it comes out of her. It can't not come out of her. He said, let her go. Like let her, it just oozes out of her.
To not be herself.
Yeah, and I just thought I felt so seen. I felt so seen, but I also felt so supported that we're not trying to curate you into some like this is who you are. So go be this. So a lot of freedom there, which I really appreciated. But yeah, I feel like I got to experience the best of both worlds in that sense, to get to live both out. And then, you mentioned the Lord called me there. The Lord called me there. So highs, lows, when I had good days, when I had bad days, when I had great seasons, when I had frustrating seasons, like you do anywhere for 12 years, any relationship, I knew I would be there forever. Because God called me. So if God called me, he must have meant forever. And so my conviction to that place and my loyalty to those people and that work was undeniable because the Lord. And the only person that could ever get me to leave would be the Lord. I just never thought he would. I just never thought he would. I thought I would be there forever.
Unless you spoke again.
Right.
And called you out, you were going to stay there.
And I just knew he wouldn't. And in my mind, I just knew he wouldn't.
I think what stands out to me, though, is like even on the bad days, it's like, okay, I'm uncomfortable or this sucks. This is terrible. I'm like really angry or bitter right now. But the Lord still said this. So like you had something to really stand on. Right. So I think that's really admirable.
Well, it's interesting. I don't want to get into like a whole marriage conversation because I know there's a lot of like wounds around marriage and stuff, but my parents were divorced. And so when I was praying about a husband, I just prayed that this would be a person that I would be married to for my whole life, that I would never get divorced. I know no one ever intends to get divorced. But I remember thinking, if I find someone that has the same values with me, where it's like, we're just going to say within reason that divorce is off the table, then you approach every fight and every low differently because there's the givenness of like, well, we know we're staying in this, so we better freaking work it out. We're locked in a room together. We better figure out how to, outside of obviously any kind of scary situations. But it was kind of like that with Ramsey, where it was like, the Lord called me there. So anything I faced, me leaving was off the table. That was never an option for me in my mind because of the Lord calling me there. So everything I saw it as, how do I work through this? How do I work within this? How do I reconcile this?
Like in marriage too, like my wife and I talk about this in moments of, we call it intense fellowship. We just remind each other, like, we're on the same team.
That's right.
Did you have that same feeling at Ramsey too? Like, hey, we're all in this together. Like, we're on the same team. Was that kind of the culture?
Yes, I do think we were all on the same team, and I always knew that their intentions were good. So whoever is they, it could be a board member, it could be the team. I knew everyone's intentions were good. Now, our version or interpretation of what the best decision was in that situation may be different. Right. And we may disagree on how we do it. We may disagree on how something is handled. But I knew that I know the hearts of those people, and their hearts are good. They are good people that love the Lord, that want to help people. And so when you have that baseline, then you're immediately approaching the problem, whatever the disagreement is, from a place of giving them the benefit of the doubt. That's so good. And you can have really mature discussions, I think, and hear each other out on those disagreements. And so, and I think also they gave me, in general, a lot of freedom there. From the sandbox I got to play in with Business Boutique, and the way that I did things that people had never been done before. Like my devotional was the first devotional the company had put out. I did smaller journal type workbooks for my event that had never been done before. So a lot of it is my courage to ask, try, fight, push, all the things. But a lot of it is they did trust me, and they gave me a lot of freedom to do that. So it went both ways. I think there was such mutual respect both ways, which on the backside made leaving so hard because, excuse me, because I think so often people think, oh, had it gotten bad or you'd gone different ways or whatever.
Yeah,
that wasn't
usually
it.
That
wasn't
something
it.
like that.
That wasn't it at all. It was one of the best years of my life. And literally overnight, the Lord was like, your season is up, essentially. And so I had to walk away in pure obedience and faith from all these people that I love, work that I love, my income, my paycheck, my brands, my books, my products. Just walk away from it.
Wow.
And it was not only one of the scariest things I've ever done, it was one of the saddest. I just, I think I cried for 3 months.
It's such a sweet time, and you're grieving the loss of what used to be.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense. The Lord spoke very directly to you, almost just gave you, you're going to work for Dave Ramsey. You'd never heard of Dave.
Gave you the sentence in your brain.
That's right.
Like,
did he give
so
you an equally specific word, or did you just have this like sense that like the Lord's calling me to leave?
So it was, I know the Lord knew how hard that would be for me. And so it was not one word. It was a persistent call that once it started was relentless. And I just am so grateful for that because even if you just had like one sentence in your mind, like, did I imagine that? Maybe I heard wrong because to upend your whole life on one moment, I don't think I could have done that, honestly. Sure. And so what happened was it was a series of events. I went to go get my hair done one day. It was just a totally normal day. And my phone rang and it was Lisa Harper. She blurts out, Christy, you're called to preach. It was a out of body experience kind of moment of like, what is happening? This is not just like a conversation. So fast forward, I get home. I tell my husband about that experience. And as I'm telling him, tears start streaming down my face. So that's not good, okay? Because that's just confirmation. That's another confirmation. If I didn't care, I'd be like, oh, that crazy Lisa. You know, if you dismiss it, the tears were tears of confirmation. I really believe sometimes our bodies will demonstrate what the Holy Spirit is telling us. And so if you just start crying for no reason about something, there's probably the Holy Spirit telling you something.
So good.
So then I was irritated because that's sign number 2. Oh man, like this is really maybe there's something.
Something here to pay attention to.
Yes, and I said to my husband, which is weird because this is not what she said. She said, you're called to preach. And then as I'm sitting on the couch, tears streaming down my face to my husband, I said, maybe she's right. Maybe I won't be at Ramsey forever. She never said that.
Yeah.
She never said that. These words are coming out of my mouth as tears are streaming down my face. So I'm all rattled. Excuse me. I'm all rattled. I tell my husband, well, I'm going to go upstairs and finish my reading, my seminary reading, and I'm going to go to bed. So I go upstairs. I cannot remember exactly what the reading was, but I was, as a quick side note, the class that I was in at the time was called Practices in Vocation Formation, which is a fancy way to say find your calling. Okay, what are you supposed to do? I took this class. Are you ready for it? God has a sense of humor. I took this class in the fall of 21 because I was launching my new book, Take Back Your Time, and I wanted an easy class because I was like, I know my calling. I'm living in it, people. Let me take this easy class that I can just coast in while I'm doing a book launch because I know I'm going to be at Ramsey forever. I was like, this will be a joke. Check that box.
Let's just talk about prophecy here. And,
yes. So I go upstairs. So the reading is about, different examples of this. And I cannot remember exactly what it said, but I know all of the reading was basically God speaking directly to me saying, you are going to leave Ramsey. But let me just tell you one section.
Okay.
At the age of 38, which was my age at the time of reading this, Carl Jung had to come out from under the shadow of his mentor, Sigmund Freud, if he was ever going to complete his life's work.
Stop it.
And it goes on and on and on and on about, and I'm literally like,
no way.
This is the third in a day. And the Lord always confirms things for me in 3. So now we have 3 in a day. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm rattled.
Yeah.
I go to bed and I'm still thinking now, this is 20 years from now.
Sure,
okay. God has given me a heads up way in advance so I can prepare my heart for this terrifying thing. So I'm thinking it's way off. I go to work the next day. I push it all out of my mind.
And your book is about to launch? Is that what's happening here?
No, it did launch 2 months before. So I'm still in book launch.
Okay.
I'm still in book launch season.
Gosh.
So I go to work the next day. I push it out of my mind. I'm just not, I'm like, I can't even think about this. Well, the next week, I believe it was the next week, we have the influencer event. And I had not been able to go to the influencer event where they bring in speakers and authors to recruit new personalities. I hadn't been able to go the previous 2 years because 1 year I had a baby, 1 year I had a surgery. So this is my first year to get to go.
Gotcha.
So I teach at this event on speaking.
Yeah.
I teach people how to craft a message and write their talk. And y'all, I came alive in a way I cannot describe. Like I'm literally running around the lobby. I'm like, yo, this is the best. This is so amazing. And everybody's like, chill out. Like, what are you so?
Because you had done those 10 dates with Rachel.
I had spoken but never taught speaking. And so I had been teaching speaking. I'd been helping friends and peers, writing talks in green rooms, helping people behind the scenes, but it was never an active part of my brand or business.
Okay. Gotcha.
And so I'm teaching this to other speakers, and I just lit on fire. I was like, this is awesome. So I go home that Friday night. I even text my leaders. I was like, I want to do more with this next year. I just love teaching, speaking, all that. On Sunday, this was a Sunday morning, a week later, I wake up at like 3 a.m. Now we're getting close to, this is November time, so we're getting close to Christmas. My husband and I had built a playhouse for our kids. And I wake up at like 3 a.m. and I can't sleep. So I'm like, well, I'm going to go put the little kitchen together for the playhouse just in the bonus room. I couldn't sleep.
Yep.
So I put on a sermon from Christy McClellan, my good friend, on YouTube.
Whatever.
And just,
that's all you had to say.
I'm watching this, and the sermon was good. The sermon was not like God speaking directly to me. Yep. Because remember, I had that weird, crazy day with the Lisa Harper call, but I've pretty much pushed this out of my mind. It's been a week now that I've not thought of it.
Yeah, you're thinking 20 years.
Sure. I'm not thinking about this at all. So I'm sitting there. It's like 4 a.m. I'm putting together a play kitchen, and the sermon is winding down. It's starting to be over. And the Lord speaks to me, and he said, watch her. You're going to be doing that.
Stop.
I was like, you're back. No.
You're back.
And I sat there, and I was literally, it felt like terror.
Yeah.
And I don't mean I'm like scared of God in that way, but it was the he's back.
That's so good.
So if he's speaking to me clearly and frequently about this, this is not 20 years from now.
Yeah.
And so I just sat there. I didn't say a word. I sat there, and he kept speaking. And he said, this is going to be hard for you, making this jump.
Mm-hmm.
But if you will trust me, you will make more of an impact than you ever could where you are.
Wow.
And I said, I just sat there, and tears now are just streaming to my face. And I said, how long, Lord? And he said, you won't be there in a year. I think what he meant to say was, you won't be there next year, but maybe that would just terrify me because that was like 6 weeks away.
He knew how to hand it.
He was like, let me narrow it down from 20 years to 1 year.
You got 12 months. I don't know when, but
sometime within the between now and
the next 6 weeks. So I'm like, can't wait for my husband to wake up. And I'm like, I've got to talk to him. So as soon as he wakes up, I'm like, get down here. We got to talk about this. So I'm just crying, and I'm talking to him. I'm processing, and it still feels terrifying. I end up leaving the very next morning to go on a trip to Florida with my mom, which was a very last-minute fluke type of a thing. Because of a cancellation that we booked, we go to Florida, and for 3 days, I'm completely alone. No kids and no work with my mom, and the Lord just speaks to me every day. So much so that by Wednesday of that week, we were in Florida for 3 days. By Wednesday of that week, I knew I had to obey. Wow. And so I pull out my phone while I'm at breakfast with my mom in Fort Lauderdale, and I said, I have to send the email. And so I drafted an email to Dave Ramsey's assistant, Patty Harris, and I said, hey, I'd like to meet with Dave. Now, this sends off all the alarms because I don't just ask to meet with Dave for no reason.
Right. Of course.
I start getting all the emails. Yeah. But that was the first domino where there was no turning back.
Yeah.
And what's so fascinating is, fast forward, I felt like the Lord had told me I would to rest for 3 months, do nothing for 3 months. And I knew he meant 3 months to the day. Like, don't go spin up a business because you're scared. Sure. Don't go try to take another job because you're scared of money.
Sure.
Trust me, do nothing for 3 months. And so, and I wasn't sure when the 3 months was going to start because it took about 2.5 months just to communicate this and walk this out and so on.
Yeah, for sure.
But I knew he meant 3 months to the day. The Israelites got to Mount Sinai at 3 months to the day. And he showed me that. And I thought, there's something about 3 months to the day.
Yeah, that's good.
So one day in February, a random day, I've now left Ramsey. I've been gone a couple months. I wake up one day and I open my eyes and I have the idea to train speakers. And it's this idea that like takes on a life of its own. Mm-hmm. And I start getting confirmations in every corner. This is what I've been doing all along. This is what I'm really good at. It's the first thing I did when I started at Ramsey, helping Rachel with her talk. And it's the last thing I did when I left at the influencer of it.
Yeah. Yep.
So it starts to really gain momentum. I told my husband, I think I feel free to go build a business training speakers.
Sure.
And I was like, so a week of this goes by of confirmation. And I look back and I'm like, what was that day? What was that random day? I woke up on a Thursday and I had this idea. It was February 24th. I went back on the calendar, 3 months to the day. No. November 24th was the day I sent the email to Patty Harris.
Way.
It was the day I obeyed.
So much.
It was the day I obeyed. And don't miss that for people that are listening. It's not the day you think about it. Yep. It's not the day you pray about it. It's the day you obey.
That's so good.
In the natural, when you act, not even a big action, a tiny action in an email.
That's right.
But it's the day you obey.
So good.
God always blesses our obedience. And so I had a business training speakers for a couple of years in the interim while I'm honoring Ramsey and that time in between. Yep. But you just see God's hand in every detail. So it was weeks and months of confirmations.
Gotcha.
that made me so sure. I quickly got to the place, this is the way I describe it, I quickly got to the place where I feared disobedience more than I feared leaving. And I feared leaving a lot.
Yeah, I get that.
That's weighty.
That's powerful. Wow. So now it's been what, 2 years?
2.5, I think, yeah.
Yeah, 2.5. Like, how have you morphed? Like, how have you started? Have you like changed directions at all and had to pivot? Or are you staying the course from how you started on day one?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So it's interesting because I think we often think, and I don't know why we think this, but we think that life or even the faith life is going to be a straight shot.
Yeah.
That God is going to take us a direct pass. And it never is.
Yeah.
It never is.
No way.
But
It makes me so mad at the same
But
time.
when he zigzags, we're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
He's like, I kind of have always done this, guys. Like,
Yeah,
I got
what are
things
you
over
doing?
here. I got things over here.
Mm-hmm.
He's got things that are temporary. Give you a great example. I actually did a podcast on this. I have a podcast called Get Your Hopes Up, and I love to help people get to know God, like really get to know him.
Yeah.
One of the things that I talked about was this thing that we think everything is forever. I thought I'd be at Ramsey forever.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought,
100%.
Seminary would be forever. And we assume we know what God's aiming at because we think linearly.
Yeah.
So God calls me to go to seminary in the spring of 21. I have no idea why he's calling me. It will not change my job. It will not change my paycheck.
Still at Ramsey when you went to seminary.
Yeah.
That is bizarre.
Wow.
He called me to go to seminary out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So after wrestling for a while, I obey.
Yeah.
I start classes in June. Okay.
Come on.
I assume that it's because I'm going to go get my master's in theology, which is what I was on track for. So when I leave Ramsey and I announce publicly that I'm leaving, I said, I guess I'm going to go into seminary full time because I'm going to have all this time on my hands since I'm leaving my full time job. That's what I thought at the time. I took a couple of quarters break, tried to get back into it, and it was like everything about it was wrong.
Interesting.
I wasn't supposed to be in it. Everything felt hard. I don't know. I took a couple classes, but there was one class specifically that this was the end. And I realized at the end of that class, God had released me from seminary. But I thought we were aiming at a master's.
Right.
I thought you called me. What else would we do it for? And then it occurred to me, he put me in seminary 6 months in advance to make the transition out of Ramsey easier on them.
Wow.
Because when I told them I was leaving, the first words out of their mouth were, well, you've been in seminary. We saw this coming.
Wow.
I love that so much.
I was going to ask you, like,
I love that
because
so
the Lord
much.
doesn't waste anything.
Yeah.
He's zigzagging all over the
Yeah.
place. We're like, oh, you got me zigging over here
Come
to
on, that's
seminary. It must
so
be for a
good.
master's. He's like, nope. And now we're back. But I'm like, so I
so
really
good.
wrestled with even
Yeah.
quitting seminary.
Yeah.
And I wrestled with it. And here's another principle, even for your listeners. So often, and this is tough love, but it's true, we do not listen to the Lord, discern his voice, or obey what he says because we're worried about what other people think.
Yeah.
And I
100%.
stayed in seminary because I worried what other people would think. Because I said
sure.
publicly when I left,
Yeah.
I'm going into seminary full time. And people would ask me all the time, how's seminary? How's seminary? Some wanted to know how I was doing. Some was like, you're still doing it, aren't you? Because that's what you said.
Yeah.
Was that the real story? And I think I stayed in seminary and tried to force it to fulfill other people's expectations of me.
sure.
When the Lord's going, no, we're done here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, right.
You don't
And-
live. Yeah. You don't live for their.
We just assume everything is forever. And so if we could understand that God has always led us in a roundabout way because he is doing things on every step of the journey, then we can be more open to things that feel like a detour and realize it's not a detour to him at all.
Yeah.
And so, for example, I left Ramsey. I started my business in August of that year, training speakers. I'm still training speakers, but it's not my primary business. I'm moving more back into what I did before, which is helping people grow their faith, grow their business, and grow themselves. And so it's a mixture of personal development, which I've always taught on, from Take Back Your Time. I've got a planner coming out. I've always loved to help people with time management and so on. Grow their faith. I've got a devotional. I've got a podcast. I've always helped people with their faith. And grow their business. I still love to do that. I still love to help people. I have a business book, and now I have a coaching group. So I think God is just inviting me to blend these back together. It doesn't have to be completely abandoning it, but it doesn't have to look like it did before either. And so just being open to, and I'm still open to what he's doing next. I tell him all the time, I'm like, Lord, if there's something you want to cut out, cut it out. And if you want to add it, create space for it. Help me create space for it. So
I think you had an episode come out recently that was talking about when the Lord speaks and it's a promise versus an obedience, right? Like usually if the Lord says
what you're talking about.
obey, it's hard and it's right now.
That's right.
And if it's a promise, it's like it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
You know,
That's just
hold
a
on-
pattern I've seen in my
hold
life,
on
at
to it.
least. Yeah.
I loved that. I loved that juxtaposition between the two because, yeah, I want to obey later and I want the promises now, but it's usually the opposite. So I think, I guess my question is like, when you heard Lisa say to you, you are going to preach the word, and like the immediate response, physical response that you had later talking to your husband, do you feel like there was like a promise that you had a long time ago that you like almost couldn't put words to? Or what was there some sort of promise in that you had not verbalized before?
No, I think the way that, at least what I was aware of, what I was consciously aware of, was God was asking me to do something with absolutely zero explanation.
Gotcha.
He did not tell me. It was excuse me. It was very much Abraham. It was leave.
Go.
Leave
Just
everything,
go. Yep.
and I will show you where you're going
Yep.
after you leave. And so when I shared that podcast on Get Your Hopes Up, the example I gave was God told me about a year and a half ago that we were going to move. And he affirmed it so many times. And I thought, fantastic, let me pack those boxes because we're about to get a moving truck tomorrow.
Yep.
And we're still in the house, y'all. A year and a half later, we have not moved.
Yeah.
Okay. But then on an obedience thing, a thing that's hard, I thought with Ramsey, it would be 20 years from now because I didn't want to obey now. I wasn't ready. Doesn't he know I'm not ready? He needs to give me time to get ready.
Yeah.
And he actually means right now. And so let's look at Abraham, for example. I love models in scripture that we can go, okay, this shows us something about the character and patterns of God. He's not a formula God, but there are patterns that we can go, he's done this before. It probably makes sense he might do it again. There's something to this.
It's consistent with his nature.
Consistent with his nature. Yes, exactly. So Abraham, he calls Abraham to leave everything. Abraham left immediately. It was like the next day. Like he leaves.
Yep.
He doesn't leave a week later, a month later.
Right.
God tells Abraham to sacrifice his son.
Yep.
He wakes up early the next morning and goes.
Yep.
Now, let's just camp here for 1 second. I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. And I know the things that will really terrify my kids. Telling them in advance does not help them. It would just make them terrified for longer.
That's so good.
So when we're going to the dentist, I don't tell them a week in advance, hey guys, next Wednesday's the dentist. And then a few days before, hey, next Wednesday's the dentist.
Yeah.
What are they going to, they're just going to be terrified.
Yeah.
Do you know when I tell them?
Yeah.
On the way.
Yeah.
As we're literally pulling into the parking lot, because they'll get in the car. We did this just a few weeks ago.
I love this.
I got them in the car and they're like, where are we going? I was like, we're just going out, just I just here we go. They just
They
make
always
know
know that that's
totally.
not
And
like-
they're like, what do you mean? I was like, we're gonna run some errands, just go some places. I don't lie, but I don't tell them.
Yeah.
We drive the 30 minutes, and as we're pulling in the parking lot, I was like, hey guys, we're gonna go there. No, you know? But I'm like,
Prolong that as much as possible.
as much as possible. But it's why. Not just for my own sanity, because I don't want to hear it, though that is true.
It's probably
But it's for them as well, because it does not change the fact that we're going to the dentist on that day.
What does worry do for them?
Absolutely
Nothing.
Okay, God is a good father. Why would he tell me a year in advance that I'm going to leave Ramsey? Imagine these scenarios I would run, the foothold the devil could get of scenarios and fear and terror and distrust and all the things that could creep in. He is a good father. He says the day before, hey, get up and leave your country the next day. And so it's in his everything God does is for our good. If we could know that, it doesn't feel good at the time. But when he makes decisions that don't feel good, if we could know his heart is good, then we could see it. When he's asking me to obey in something instantly, it's not because he's trying to do it before we're ready. He knows it's going to be hard, ready or not.
So good.
So it's less time to worry about it. So obedience often is immediate. He's asking for obedience immediately. And I just want to camp here for 1 second, one quick sidebar. If you're listening to this right now, and God has been nudging you to do something, or calling you to do something, or putting on your heart to do something, and you have resisted it, and you have wrestled with it, and you've convinced yourself you're not sure, and you're trying to discern it, and talk to friends, and all the excuses of you're not sure, I just want to tell you, you will only find relief when you obey. I believe that the tension and angst and anxiety we feel is not actually because that thing is so hard. It's because we are refusing to submit our will to the Holy Spirit.
That's good.
And the moment that you submit and you say, I'm going to do it, even before you take action in the natural, when you submit in your heart and go, I'm going to do that thing. I'm going to leave Ramsey. I'm going to do whatever the thing is. Immediate relief, because now you've pulled your will in alignment with the will of the Holy Spirit, and you feel relief, even if you're still scared, even if that decision is still hard.
Right.
You've stopped wrestling against the will of
You've
God.
taken on his yoke.
Yes.
There's safety in his presence doing
yes.
it.
Yeah. You feel in your spirit that is right. The way that I describe it is the Holy Spirit agreeing with himself, going, yes, when you feel that relief.
Good.
So obedience is often immediate, and it's God's goodness that he doesn't tell us in advance. The promise takes a lot of time, y'all. Takes a real long
I'm still waiting
time.
on a few things.
Same.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because so much faith is built in the in-between, between the promise and the delivery. So let's go back to Abraham.
Yeah.
Abraham was told, you will have a son.
At 75.
25 years later, he gets a son. And we could give example after example.
Yeah,
David was anointed as king, as a shepherd boy. And when did he become king? Decades later?
40 years later?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in that space, between and here was the takeaway from that podcast episode that I'll just share as a summary for you guys listening. Both of those scenarios require faith, and that's what God is after.
Yeah.
For you to act on something before you're ready and you're not sure and you don't have 100% proof requires faith. To leave your country before you're ready requires faith. To believe God when your circumstances absolutely make it completely impossible for that promise requires faith. To wait requires faith. To be patient. To withstand the doubt of the enemy and the lies that he plants in your head, or even well-meaning family and friends that go, that's totally impossible, requires faith. Both of those scenarios, immediate obedience and patience for the promise, requires faith. And that's what God is after. He's after our faith. He's after growing our faith.
It's trust.
And it's just hanging on, man. It's like, I think so often, we look at the Bible story and we always see ourselves as like the hero. We don't ever want to be like the bad guy or whatever.
We don't want to be the prodigal son.
No, totally. And so you read the Old Testament. I'm like, I would totally be Moses. Like, I would totally be Moses. Like, no, I'm the Israelites going, you don't even feed us. Send me back to Egypt. Are we ever going to get there? I so in my heart.
Golden calf.
Yeah, in my heart, I have those temper tantrums and waiting for my own promise of getting discontent or getting impatient. And I go, ooh, that sounds just like the Israelites complaining in the desert.
Yep.
He's the same one that rescued you from Egypt. He's the one that gave you a fire by night and a cloud by day. He's the one that fed you with manna when you were hungry.
Right.
He's the same God. Look at his faithfulness and let that strengthen you to be faithful to the end. I love Hebrews 3. Where it says, do not be like the Israelites who missed out on the promise because of their lack of faith. I just want to be a person that has faith to the end. So if I'm 65 still believing for this house, I want to be 65 still believing this house, or 75 because God said. And if God says something different, I'll change my mind. But the last thing he said was, there is this impossible house and I'm just waiting on it.
Yeah. I feel like it's so easy to, when you don't see the Lord come through in your time frame, be like, I must have just missed it. And then you start to doubt the Lord, and then you start, I will go down the rabbit hole of, I will doubt everything at that point. Like,
and making
is the
decisions
scenario
out of like panic too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. Like, are we currently in the right house?
Right.
Did I miss it there? Is this business right? Is this what he has for me? As opposed to having that anchor, that anchor of hope. And I think once you open the door, it's like the enemy is always there to pounce. He's just right there ready to pounce.
Well,
on
and
that,
I think he wants to make you think that you are way more powerful than you are, meaning that you could screw it up. But if you've surrendered your life to Christ and you seek him, you can't screw it up. Like, so if you're seeking him, if you're like, Lord, if you're a person of prayer and in daily relationship with the Lord, he will not let you go wrong. Now, if you're just doing your own thing and you're ignoring God and you're tuning out his voice, then he'll let you reap the consequences of the decisions you make.
For sure.
But man, he's a good father. Like, he wants to be heard by us. We think he's playing hide and seek and hard to get, and he's not. Like, if you're a believer and you are doing something and you have not had any red flags, any cones, anything, you can rest in knowing you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. It may not be what you want to be doing. You may be in a job that you don't like, but just know, I would love to not be in my house. Like, God created this desire for a new house a year and a half ago. I don't want to be, I'm like, if I'm here, then it's because he wants me here, so it must be good for me to be here. Mm-hmm. And so I just think we can let the pressure be off. It's on him. It's his idea, his promise, his results. It's his job to guide us. I love all of the Psalms and Proverbs that are about, many are the plans in a man's heart, but the Lord's purpose that prevails. He directs our steps. And so we can just rest in knowing, yes, he partners with us, but if you submit your will to him, if you are in relationship with him, you can rest and know, He's really good at getting us to where we want to be. Think of Jonah.
Yes.
Like, he's really good at getting us to where he wants us to be.
With all the temper tantrums.
That's right. That's
Jonah
right. He's so
had,
patient with us.
I love that God factors in personally my stupidity.
100%.
And like, I mean, it's
Thank
just.
you, Lord.
I have a question. It's advice. I'll ask after we're done recording. It's just personal. But my pastor 2 days ago, literally on Sunday, we were going through the end of Genesis 11, talking about Terah, Abram's father, leaving Ur to go to Canaan, and he literally made it halfway to Haran. And if you look at the map, it's like a triangle. Like, you had to follow the coast. You couldn't go straight across. Like, you would literally just die. But like, Haran is like halfway, and then you have to travel down to Canaan.
Okay.
And I guess it'd be backwards for you. But Terah kind of drug his feet and was just it was delayed obedience.
Yeah.
And then God used Abram, and Abram still left and went to Canaan despite his father's disobedience. And the Lord still used Abram to carry on, obviously, the lineage. And
That's right. That's right.
So my pastor's point was like, I mean, God can use other. What do you say? Oh, I'm struggling right now. And he told another illustration too. They were riding horses in East Tennessee, and they had like hit the trails. You know, they're on horses. The guide is leading the way. His name's Larry. He's literally insane, but he just lives in the mountains. It's kind of my people, but they're a ways away. One of the guy's horses needs a new shoe, and he goes, "Cool, just head back to the stables. Like, just follow the trail. They'll get you a new shoe, and then you just meet back up with us." Well, the guy takes off, and it's been a long time, and that he should have caught up by now. Well, now Larry, the guide, and my pastor, and a few other guys get to a fork, and he's like, "What does this guy do when he gets to the fork?"
Sure.
Right.
And so they go right, and he's like, "Hope he knows to go right." So it's like, again, he should have caught up by now. Lo and behold, this guy, they hear hooves, and it's like up above them. This path, even though it had forked, was converging back, and they had met up to. He was going to find them regardless.
Wow, that's
and
good.
it's this beautiful illustration of like, you can take the scenic route, and you know, if you walk away from the Lord, like that's a different story. But if you're fighting and trying to stay in a place of faith, like it's this beautiful picture of you're going to end up where you're supposed to be.
That's right.
And it's so powerful. I'm like still digesting it.
Wow, that's so good.
That's so good. He redeems and uses everything.
Yeah.
I shared a podcast, or a story on my podcast a few weeks ago from a story from a year ago where I went biking with one of my friends, and we ride road bikes where your feet are clipped into the pedals, you know? And so we're on the Natchez Trace, we're biking, we pass a turtle on the road, and I thought I need to move that turtle because it's going to get hit by a car, and I love animals anyway, but I hesitated. Well, in the hesitation, we started going downhill. Well, when you go downhill and on a road bike, you're going fast and you're not turning around easy. Like it's like you can't turn around very easy. So then the moment was gone. Yeah. And I just felt really checked in my spirit. I felt really like upset about it. I was praying like, God, please protect the turtle, like all the things. I know this sounds crazy, but it's just true. This is what I was thinking. Then Jennifer, my friend, says a while later, she goes, I feel like we should have moved that turtle. And she said, I was thinking the same thing, but neither of us said it. So we go out, we ride about, 10, 12 miles out. We get some water and stuff in Leaper's Fork and then come back. And the whole way back, y'all, it's all I can think about because I feel really, really bad that I didn't move it. And I'm just praying so hard for this turtle. I'm praying so hard that the turtle moved. And it feels like God is in this moment. There's something about this that's more than a turtle. Yeah. And I'm praying my heart out the whole way back, and we get back and we pass him, and of course he didn't make it. And I just cry. I'm like riding my road back, just crying. Yeah. And I just prayed. I said, Lord, I'm so sorry. And he said, it's not that you didn't move the turtle. It's that you hesitated. And I want you to know that when you don't obey immediately, there are real consequences in the natural. Now, this was in a year, 2023 was a year of testing for me, but it was also a year of testing for a lot of people in the body of Christ. Like I have heard so many people, like 2023 was a year of testing. Can
I just confirm that and say yes?
Yes, and amen. Yeah. Yes. Let's get some tissues and have a therapy session about it. It was hard. Yeah. And it was one after another. When you're like, I can't take another thing. And the Lord would say, yeah, you can. So that was a part of my testing. And it was a lesson that, again, I felt even at the time that the Lord let me fail to teach me that principle, because you better believe I've never forgotten it. Yeah. in something as insignificant as a turtle,
Yeah.
so that when something happens in real life, I act instantly.
Yes.
Like I do not hesitate. It's the hesitation that causes you to miss the window
Yep.
in some of these opportunities to do something that he wants you to do, whatever it is. But he can still redeem even the turtle. So fast forward, my birthday is July 20th. So I just had a birthday recently.
Whoop, whoop.
And my podcast goes out on one day. Well, I record my podcast, a month in advance or so. And so I don't always know what's coming out on each week.
Sure.
So someone sends me a message on this Monday that, oh my gosh, I love the turtle story, or, whatever. I saw a turtle on my run. I moved it. You saved this turtle. Something cute.
Yeah.
So that Saturday I go for a run with some of my friends in Alabama. Have not seen a turtle since. Okay. This was a year ago. Haven't seen a turtle since, but this podcast goes out from the story.
Sure.
And I'm driving home and I just noticed something in the road. I'm going about 45 in my car, driving home from this run. I noticed something in the road and I'm like, what's that? And I look in my rear view and I see a little bump and I'm like, it's a turtle. So I'm like, oh my God. I was like, Lord, give me a chance, give me a chance, give me a chance. I go up, go in a driveway, turn around, come back. A car's coming this way and a car's coming this way. I put on my flasher, something, get the turtle and put him in. And I was like, the Lord gave me another chance.
That's awesome.
He gave me a chance to pass a test, redeem the turtle a year later on the week that podcast went out.
Wow.
You can't tell me he's not in the details, man.
That's right.
But that lesson, oh, you better believe I've never forgotten it.
Yep.
Don't hesitate. So I was in a situation several weeks ago where I saw a woman that I believe needed help, and I believe the Lord was leading me to do something. And it was like I had a tiny window.
Yeah.
I just don't hesitate anymore. I'm not going, oh, are you sure? Is this you? I don't know. Give me signs. Give me 5 signs.
Yeah,
Let me get.
right,
I just act. I just act. And I think that there's something that obviously happens through living with the Lord and discerning His voice over time, where you don't need as much of that.
Yeah, it's like a muscle.
Yeah, it is. It just becomes more natural. But man, even that He can redeem. He can redeem. He can let me, quote unquote, fail to learn the lesson and then redeem it and find purpose in it. So you're right. He will always get us to where we need to be.
Yeah.
It's just sidebars and side steps. And we think we've screwed up. He's like, oh no, I can make even that for my good. He works all things together for good.
With last year, you saying being a season of a lot of testing, do you feel like this year has been a lot more moments like that? Like redemptive moments?
Pure joy.
Really?
It's pure joy this year.
Interesting.
And I don't know if everybody's experiencing that, but I will say there was a lot of prophetic accounts I follow that are very on point for saying how the last 2 to 3 years have been years of testing, shaking, lots of just testing and shaking and trials and fire and all the things. And the harvest is coming. And there's always harvest after these trials and after wilderness, and there's always blessing after obedience, but there's a season of the wilderness before you get to the promised land. And the promise is coming. And so I remember in January, I really sensed last November, and I've gotten more confident in my own discernment of prophecy of like what I feel like God is saying.
Sure.
In November, I really felt like I just saw swirling winds, like winds that were swirling because the wind was literally changing. It used to be against you, where it felt like everything was just so hard. Like every step felt like so much effort. 2 steps forward, 10 steps back, like you're in quicksand. You can't get out. All this imagery. And I just saw the wind swirling to come at your back, where it just propels you forward. And it was swirling in November and in December. And the Lord spoke to me in November when I started to like get nervous, feeling like something was happening. I was like, oh, is this a test? And He said, the testing is done. The testing is done.
Wow.
And so then you come into January, and my friend sent me something on Instagram. It was just like a little quote, and it said, last year God made you strong. This year He's going to make you happy. And I thought that sounds cute, but I don't know if it's true. Yeah. And I don't know if I want to believe it because I'm still a little bit scarred from this year.
Sure.
And this has truly been the happiest year that I can remember ever. Like it is one happy thing after another. It is one fulfillment of a promise after another. It is just, and it's not like it's easy. I still got 3 kids. My house is still a mess. 100%. Life still has trials, but the testing is done, and God is showing up. He often shows up, though. I do want to give this one caveat. When we experienced harvest or fulfillment of the promise or the promised land, we often think, or I think, it's going to be a light bulb moment. It's going to be flip a switch. It's like happiness. All of a sudden, God moves very slowly, even in the fulfillment of the promise. And He can move so slowly, you almost miss it. The analogy that I shared actually on my podcast is, have you ever eaten at one of those rotating restaurants, where like it spins? Have you ever seen those? They're like,
I'm not eating them, but
they're way up high. It's really beautiful. They've got tables all lining the windows, and it rotates very, very, very slowly. I don't know how the servers find the tables whenever they're trying to like deliver the food. They're very cool.
I can't imagine the feeling when they get off work and they're like,
I'm not spinning anymore.
Like, wait a second.
But it's a very cool experience. So you're sitting there at the table, and you look out, and you're like, oh, you're seeing this part of the downtown of the city. and then you eat some food and talk to your spouse or your family or whatever, and you look up and you have a totally different view. It felt like you weren't moving, but you were.
Yeah.
You were just moving so slowly it didn't seem like it. And I think God often fulfills our promises like that, where you guys use the example just now of like this business we have, this podcast we have. If you would have told me if you would have told me even 6 months ago, what I'm doing right now is what I'd be doing, I wouldn't have believed you. If you would have told me 2 years ago that my son that has autism, that I didn't know at the time, would be getting himself dressed, coming downstairs, put full uniform by himself without assistance, that he's a leader in his school, he's getting like all these awards at his school, which we were getting kicked out of camps at the time that I thought like, I thought that this means something for our life. He wasn't going to be able to do anything. I wouldn't have believed you. If you stop and look at how far you've come, which as Americans, we're often so goal-oriented, we only look forward, we don't look backward. You'll see God is fulfilling the promise. He just might be fulfilling it more slowly, but don't miss that he's fulfilling it. You are living right now in the fulfillment of his promises. You are living right now in answered prayers. Don't miss that. That's because it's not a light switch moment. He's fulfilling them even now.
I think it's, for me personally, it's easy to think about the like existential, like things outside of me, like I should be seeing this, I should be seeing that. But I think, at least in this season, like it's been a season of becoming who I'm supposed to be. And the testing is for that.
That's right.
And that's at least what I feel like. What in your experience with being developed into who you're made to be. Like, what are some things that you're walking in now because you've walked through a season of testing and you've had to be developed? People, I think it was Banning Leapshire on his podcast, whatever, said that people oftentimes want to be discovered, not developed. And how have you been developed?
Yeah, that's so good. So in the testing year, and it was really I guess it was really 2 years of testing because I left Ramsey and then we got Conley's diagnosis. I started my business in the fall and went into was it that fall or I guess it was the next fall, a really difficult legal battle with an organization that just tried to do me wrong on some things that I own. And so what's so interesting though is because of what I went through, how God carried me through the Ramsey stuff, I approached that legal battle so much more confidently. I was like, please, if God can carry me through this with 100%. Grace and respect, get in line. I am here to fight for what is my, I felt so, God was speaking to me about Esther. I was so bold. I was so confident. And I'm a tiny person they have all the money in the world and I have no money for attorneys, but I just would not back down because of the confidence I had.
Dear God. What are we doing?
Well, no, I mean, it's just your confidence, you're going, look what God did before, he'll do it again. So very similar example, last year there was a lot of testing in 2023 on my finances. I would feel gosh, we're not going to make it this month. And God would say, I want you to give. When I'm God, pay this bill. And he's 100%. No, I want you to give. And I'm no, do you know what the numbers say? And so when we've got 3 kids, therapies, special needs schools, we've got all our expenses are high every month. So it just feels there's so much on the line. If I was single, I'd be I wouldn't feel there's that much on the line. But all these responsibilities and expenses. So last year, he tests me in finances. He tests me in also just ridiculous acts of faith. Walk up to this house and knock on the door. Give this person this. Go, I want you to... There was one day, y'all, I was at a park, and he told me to run 7 laps. I'm literally marched around Jericho, and I was okay, Lord, I'm running around. So it's will you do the things I'm telling you to do simply because you hear my voice? He asked me one point, do you trust what I say more than what you see? He asked me another time, do you trust me more than your bank account? And he was revealing idols in my life. I would never have thought my bank account was an idol. I do not, I'm not bougie. I don't have to have nice things, but it's security to me. If I have a savings account, I'm secure.
Well, those even seemingly wild, foolish things, even Scripture says he uses the foolish things to shame the wise. And I mean, kudos to you for being obedient, even in the running 7 laps.
The ridiculous. Well, and I think there was a part of it of in leaving Ramsey, I think I had to unlearn some stuff, and not in a bad way at all. But there was I had gone through a period of time in my business, the first 6 months or so, where I needed either answers, resources, or solutions on a variety of things, and I would always get it, but it was always last minute. And it was it became such a pattern that I finally asked God about it. I was what are you doing? Because I need this is happening over and over again where you are coming through for the last minute. And I asked him, because you can ask God, by the way. If you're listening right now and you're I don't know why, just ask him. He may not tell you, but he may. So I said, Lord, what are you doing? You're coming through on all these things, but they're so last minute. It's making me a nervous wreck. And he said this. He said, you know how to plan. You've planned for 12 years. You've had your life planned 18 months in advance to the minute. You know how to plan and prepare. I need you to learn how to walk by faith.
Wow.
He was unlearning in me the preparation,
That's
the
so
dependency on schedules and plans and itineraries. Like,
100%.
do you believe I'll come through?
Yeah.
Do you believe I'll come through for you when you don't see it and you don't have the answer yet? And so it was really a period of testing, but like you said, preparation, but it's built my confidence where now, like my money this year, my money can be high, low, in between. When you're running a business, you never know what it's going to be sometimes. And it's like on the low months.
What are you talking about?
I don't know anything about that.
I don't feel that.
But I can know in the low months, I do not doubt.
That's good.
I do not doubt because I know, I'm like, if he can carry me through what he carried me through last year, there was one moment last year, y'all. I mean, this is really vulnerable, but I think that's what is most powerful in your teaching when you just share the real you.
Yeah.
There was a moment where, so typically summer is low in business. Like fall and spring are heavy for me, summer is low.
Yep.
It was at the end of the summer, going into fall, and I had fall lunches planned, but nothing had happened yet in terms of and my expenses were so high. I had a full-time team member. I was trying to payroll, all the things. Yep. School tuition is starting up, all of it. And it's right at that gap where it's like, I know that it's going to go up, but we are now as low as we can get.
Yeah.
And because of our monthly expenses were so high with all these therapies and schools and stuff, I was so scared. And he had stretched me to the point where I feel like, I'm going to tear up. Like, I feel like this is the moment I could point to and go, and that is where I broke.
Yeah.
And my bank account got lower than I ever thought it could. And of course, we have like investments we could pull from if we needed to, but it was like just our regular life. Yeah. And I got on my face in the floor of my bedroom. And I just said 2 words. I said, help me. Help me. I know you know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm not in this. There was no element of this making me think, you're stupid in business. You're making poor business decisions. I knew I was right where he wanted me. He wanted me there.
Yeah.
I knew it because I am smart. I knew it. He wanted me right there. And I said, help me. Help me. And I meant help me in my bank, but I meant help me have faith because I know I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And this hurts so bad. It's so scary. The very next day, the devotional I read was, I will help you. Just those words. Yeah. I will help you. Yeah. And so now it's like, if I can get to what felt like rock bottom, and I know it's relative, but people are going, you don't even, in my world, it felt like he was breaking me and breaking my will, my dependence on my bank account. If I can get through that, then this year, it can be high, low, in between. It's like, my God will help me. He will carry me.
That's right.
I tell people all that. I heard someone say this months ago, and I totally have used it so much. His will, his bill. If you're in his will, then it's his bill to pay.
Yeah.
If it's a business decision, if it's a house, if it's a therapy, I knew my full-time team member I was supposed to have. I knew the schools and the tuitions were where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, right.
And I knew that mathematically it wasn't adding up, but if he wanted us there, then he would fill the gap. Yeah. And so it's, again, just putting it back on him. I actually, I'm sharing all the stories from my podcast, but one of the stories I shared from the podcast was last fall. This was after, our bank account is back and everything's good and fine and back to normal with the fall launches. But I got 2 bills that were just really annoying. And they were very, very expensive, thousands of dollars
were
each.
They taxes?
They were not, though. That is definitely one of them.
Don't even get me started on taxes.
Sorry.
But one of them was legal fees for this fight that I should have never had to be in. Yeah. So it was like the bills, both of them, it was 2 bills, represented things that made me bitter.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just the money, it was what they represented that were just wrong. Yeah. So I got them, and I was mad about them. And I was irritated. I could pay them, but I didn't want to.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to give all that money to that.
Yeah.
And so I literally put them on my desk with a sticky note that said God's bills. And I was like, will you pay these? Yeah. I go, I'll pay for my life out of like the rest of the things we got going, my normal routine. I go, but will you pay these?
That's good.
Because I hate these.
Yeah.
And you know why I hate these and so on. Okay, so I leave them there.
Good.
Fast forward through the fall. I get a couple different speaking events and things that come in. So I think, I guess that's how God's going to pay them. So I pay the bills, obviously when they were due, all the normal stuff. Okay, fast forward. Oh, sorry. Y'all love all the timing stuff, so you'll love this. Fast forward. It is December 23rd. Okay, 2 days before Christmas. And we're going to go to my in-laws for Christmas. And I wake up that day and I just am compelled to straighten up all my online accounts for unknown reasons, but all my online, I had multiple business bank accounts and I wanted to consolidate them into the one account from when I was a sole proprietor to when I was an LLC. And so I'm getting them all on the LLC now. Okay. This could have been done anytime. Doesn't need to happen on December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, but I wake up and I'm compelled to do this.
You're an entrepreneur. Your mind's running.
Oh, you got to do it right now. My husband's like, can we get in the car? And I'm like, I'm almost done. Like a crazy person. So I'm going through.
Literally me.
Yeah, we're all the same. We're all the same. So I get to Shopify, which is what I ran my online store through, and I see Shopify balance. And I'm like, balance? And I'm thinking, does this money I owe? Why would I owe Shopify this much money? It's thousands and thousands of dollars. So I'm like, what is this? So I start digging into it to try to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
It's money in my account that had been sitting there that I didn't know was there because all the other transactions had come through PayPal. So this was a different thing that I had to manually transfer it to my account and didn't know that.
Gosh.
And it had been there for like, I guess, a month and a half. So I'm just reconciling whatever. It was $200 more than both of those bills combined.
So you paid the bills and you passed go and collected $200.
Wait. And that was the day my non-compete was up.
Wow.
No way.
Oh my gosh.
On the day that I was free.
Yeah.
Stop.
God paid my bills.
Oh my gosh. That's
Yo, ask the Lord. Ask the Lord. Ask him to blow your mind. He will blow your mind. He will blow your mind. I want to say this. I am not special. He will blow your mind. Yeah. He is that good, that powerful, that personal, that present.
That's right.
Ask
That's so
him.
True.
Yeah.
That's
ask
so true.
him to show up in your life. But then here's the thing. When he does, freaking acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Acknowledge that it's him. Don't go, oh, what a coincidence.
right.
I just had some money
No
sitting here.
way.
That was the Lord.
That's
It
right.
was the Lord in the turtle.
That's right.
It was the Lord in Shopify. It was the Lord in every detail. You have to see
That's
him
right.
in everything he is in
right.
everything.
Yeah.
He is.
I just appreciate your vulnerability. I mean, yeah, it's like there have been seasons starting this business and stuff where we've been like, what do we do? Like, again, literally, I mean, simple prayer, Lord, like, help me.
That's right.
Open my eyes.
That's right.
Like, where am I supposed to look?
That's
Where am I
right.
supposed to put my hands to? I want to maximize my time.
Yeah.
I only want to do the things that you're calling me to do.
That's right.
And then, yeah, it's like we had a escrow refund out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Thousands of dollars.
That's
it's
right.
like, didn't see that coming.
That's right.
Like, thank you, Lord.
That's right.
Like, you see me.
That's right.
Well, even a couple of weeks ago, if that, we were just looking at like, okay, this is unbelievably low this month.
Yeah.
What is happening? What are we doing something wrong?
Right.
Like, have we missed something?
Right.
And just like, if Jesus does not move, I don't know what to do. You know, it's kind of that moment. It was like we had to stop, and I'm like snot.
Yeah.
Like just my head buried. I'm like, Jesus, what is happening?
We're praying like over there.
That's right. That's right.
Just desperate, and like, I not kidding you. We finished praying, and I'm like a mess. And Andy pulls up email, and no joke, the largest order we've ever had was that email was being typed while we were praying.
Yes.
And we received it. It was like,
yes.
Oh my gosh, Lord, like
That's so good.
And it's just it's being desperate. I think it's that faith of like,
that's right.
I can't
That's
do this.
exactly where
Lord.
he wants you.
You have to do it.
Yeah.
That's exactly where he wants you.
When you do it, you get the glory.
That's right.
Because that's what it's about. He
The
just
heavy lifting isn't on us.
That's right.
No.
But if we're honest, we don't want that. Like, we don't
not at
want
all.
to be weak,
Yeah.
vulnerable,
No.
help us. I want a big bank
Nope.
account. I want to do it
Yep.
myself and be like, God,
I
see
want
you over
people
there.
to
Thank
be
you so
like,
much.
you guys are great.
What, totally.
You know what I mean?
Well, and when you look, especially in the online business world, you see all these people being so successful and blasting all the things they make
Yeah.
per month or whatever. And that can get in your head.
Yeah.
The reality is we are called to walk by faith,
Yeah.
not by sight, not by bank account, not by the world's version of success. And the truth is, when we are our most vulnerable and most desperate,
Yeah.
that is the perfect place for us. That's exactly where God wants us because we're
right.
the most dependent on Him.
Yeah, that's
but we
right.
hate that place. I hate being on my face crying, going, help me. I would
I
much
know.
rather just have a lot of money and be like, God, I love you too. Also,
Yeah.
it's like, He's like, no, it's not.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like, and even I think in business, it's so interesting how He uses our businesses.
Yeah.
Because I remember praying last year, specifically when I was praying about money, because when I left Ramsey, we're like, okay, we're living on savings. We've got
Sure.
this amount of savings. You're doing the math of how long will this last until I start bringing in money again? What are we going to do?
Yep.
And you're like, okay, I used to shop at Publix, but now we're about to shop at Walmart. Okay, so like you start to make
Aldi, anybody?
That's right, Aldi. Yeah. Like, and I'm like, Lord, I'm not bougie. I don't like
Yeah.
have to have fancy things. But like, I just want to shop at Publix, man. I just want to shop on the
Yeah, yeah,
groceries
yeah.
and not have to have coupons. Like, I would
Yeah.
love to have a level of comfort. And I remember saying specifically, Lord, I just want to be comfortable.
Mm.
And He said, what if I don't want you to be?
Gosh.
And He wasn't talking about financially comfortable. He doesn't want me to be financially comfortable.
Yeah.
I was saying, I want to be independent without you.
Yeah,
I want to not
that's
need
right.
you so bad.
That's right. Yeah.
And
That's
He's
right.
like, no, that's what if I don't win? And I remember even when this season of testing was coming to an end, I said to the Lord, God, I can't wait for this to be over. And he said, I don't want it to be over. He said, I love how dependent you are on me.
I love the time that we've had together.
That's right. That's right. The prayers, the desperation, all that. Like he wants us like that. He loves us so much. And he wants us to be in communion with him and praying to him and desperate and seeking him on every decision all day, every day. And we just don't when we're comfortable, y'all. We don't when we have money. We don't when we're smart and fancy and successful and have our own thing going on. We check in over our shoulder to make sure we're on the right track. We go to church. We check the box. But there is a deep personal intimacy with the Lord that only happens in suffering, that only happens in the weakness and vulnerability. And we would never want that, but he knows that the best thing for us is himself. And that is where we get him. We get him when he takes everything else away. And all we can do is cry out, God, help me. And he's like, I will help you. I will help you.
He is enough.
There's a parable. No, not a parable. It's a story literally about Jesus, and he literally asked the guy, how can I help you? And I think he's looking to ask us that question.
What do you want me to do for you?
What do you want me to do for you? Wow. Okay. That was great.
We'll go to church.
We go. So, that's fine.
But so practically, like we've talked about, faith, the adventure of faith, your entrepreneur journey. Like, how are you feeling as a mom? Like, how are you handling your platform and being a mom and like running a business? Like, how's that going?
How's it going? That's a great question. It depends on the day, honestly. No,
sounds like my wife.
No, I'll tell you two things.
It's going horrible today.
Two things I will say about it. One is specifically in relation to business. One of the challenges of leaving Ramsey that I have had that I've experienced that I didn't expect is I have had to decide what is right for me in this season with the Lord, obviously, but decide what is right for me in this season. What is my version of success? What are my hours? What is my workflow? What are my days like? And then stand in confidence on that. When I see friends on big stages, on Good Morning America, when I see all this success that I used to do in those exact ways, I have to be confident I'm doing what's right for me. And I know that I am because I know that world, y'all. I have lived that life. I've run 100 miles an hour for 12 years. I'm loving being home. I'm loving working way less hours, being there for all the mom coffees and after school play dates. I'm loving doing that. And I think that I will do that hard life again, not hard, but like the hard, fast running again. I think I'll do that again. I think I am called to that, and I do thrive in it. But if you're not careful, having all my friends and peers running hard, doing all these successful, amazing things, partnerships and brand deals and book launch, all this stuff. And I'm in my home office running my coaching group and doing courses from home on such a smaller scale with such, very scrappy. I'm setting up my lights and camera, like we said, doing it myself. I don't have a team that I used to have. All the things that I used to have, I don't have. It takes a lot of confidence to go, good for them and good for me. That's right for them and this is right for me. And not let it make me doubt myself like, ooh, because if not, the enemy will get in there, man. You're like, bitterness. You used to do this. You used to do this. You used to do that. You're not, look at you now. You have to really guard against
comparison
that.
In general as a mom is a big deal.
It is.
Much less, let's throw a business on top of that.
That's right.
And a major life transition on top of that.
Well, in a public business where it's like, I am the product. I'm not selling a product. I am the product. And so it's, do people like me? Are they buying me? And so that is even another layer of success or acceptance or whatever. And so I think I have felt really confident in my season because I've done that before. So I can go, I've done that and I can do it again. And I know I probably will do it again. But right now I just want to be home and wear my comfy shorts and my athleisure clothes and just be a mom most of the days. And I'll work and come into stuff like this and put on a blazer. I know how to do that too. So that's one, is just being confident in your season. Being confident, knowing just because you're in a season right now doesn't mean that season will last forever. It doesn't mean, I've peaked at Ramsey and I'm never, no.
The greatest days are ahead.
No, totally. But reminding yourself and being confident where you are. And if you're thriving and you're launching books, don't feel like I'm failing as a mom. I'm a bad mom.
That's good.
You're in a book launch season, man.
That's
You'll
so
go
good.
back home and do. So it's just, there's
good.
a season
That's
to
such
it.
a good word.
That's one big part that I think's been really important for you. The other thing that I'll say, and this is specifically a word to the moms of littles. Do y'all have kids?
I have a 4-year-old little girl.
Okay.
Yeah, she's wild.
I got 3 and 6 months.
Okay,
So
you specifically, both of you, but all the parents of little kids. Here's just what I want to say. And quick context, I have 3 kids, 9, 7, and 4. All 3 kids have ADHD. One has autism. My other one has severe anxiety and phobias. We have had a lot of years of therapies, evaluations, trying to figure out what's going on because life is just plain harder than it is for neurotypical kids or quote unquote typically developing kids. So I just want to say that context, okay? That is the context.
Yeah.
You're going to make it. You're going to make it.
Yeah.
It's going to get easier. And everybody told me that, but I just want to say it again because you need someone to tell you every day.
Yeah.
When they're screaming, it is going to get easier. One day you're going to sit down at the playground. One day you're going to sit by the pool and they're going to swim on their own.
Yeah.
One day they're going to bathe themselves.
We were literally just taught my daughter how to swim. That's so spot on with what you're saying.
Something shifted this year for me. And it's just this year, so it's very new. I'm very new on the other side. I can tell you there is another side. It's not going to be screaming all day, every day. It's not going to be diapers all day, every day. Your house is not going to be a total disaster every day. Mine is still messy, but it's not a total disaster with just like grossness everywhere. It's not going to be like that. We had spring break this year and we went to the beach. It was very last minute during our kitchen renovation. My husband and I sat down while the kids played for like 6 hours in the water, something that's never happened in a decade. Never happened in a decade, y'all. I've had kids for 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay, I started 10 years ago. My oldest is 10. This has never happened. And my husband and I looked at each other and we go, we're sitting down. Look at us.
That's so good.
Sitting down.
That's so good.
You will sit down again.
Yeah.
You will sleep in again.
Yeah.
You will have time alone again.
Yeah.
You will actually, believe it or not, you will enjoy being with them because you're not just keeping them alive and keeping them fed.
Yeah.
You will actually like play and want to have experiences with them. I just want to say you're going to make it because the 10 years of parenting with littles, some people love the baby stage. I did not. I didn't love pregnancy. I didn't love newborn stage. I love to be active with my kids.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to see it. I'm starting to get to the other side of how awesome. And people will tell you, oh, it doesn't get easier. It just gets different kind of hard. No, it gets easier. It gets infinitely easier.
Because they get more independent.
Yes, the things that are so physically exhausting, keeping them from jumping off of, playground slides and killing themselves and hitting their brother, like all the things.
Don't run down the hill.
Yeah, they still, they're still boys, they're still wild.
Yeah.
But there's just the independence that you can, and it is on you to put them on there. I'll give a great parenting resource that I'm reading that's changing my life right now, The Anxious Generation. And it's not just for teens and it's not just about screens. Every parent should read it.
That's good.
Because it's even about parenting. The things that our generation is maybe doing a little bit wrong that we could do better. Sure. And I've started implementing some very simple strategies this summer, putting more on my kids. Yeah. Like, make your own breakfast. They're like, oh! At first they're like horrified. They're like, what do you mean? Like
you've abandoned them.
They're used to having a maid and a chef and a servant to just fetch their every need. And honestly, as parents, we're just so freaking tired. So it's easier to just get them the waffle than to have the fight for them to put the waffle in.
Yeah, but at the same time, it feels like you're just at their every beck and call.
1,000%.
And my daughter specifically, we've gone, it's just like I want juice. I want this. And it's I can't do it fast enough for you.
That's right. That's it.
That's how it feels.
That's exactly it. And when you have multiple kids, I just start I've got a house assistant that helps me. My husband helps me. My mom helps me. I'm like, I'm going to stop having all these people fetch things for you guys. You're very capable, but it just takes the time to and the energy to implement it. But if you that day will come. That day will come. This morning I walk downstairs and I get the medicine, my kids' medicine out and put it on their plate because they can't open the parent-proof thing. And they said, "What's for breakfast?" I said, "Whatever you want to make, man." And they're like, "Oh yeah." They didn't fight me because we've been doing this all summer, and they made their own breakfast.
Golly. Thank you.
And I just walked out of the room.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. See y'all later. Have a great day.
You know how to do this. Yeah.
You're going to make it. You're going to make it. You need to hear that every day. Parents of littles, you need to hear it every day. Take it one day at a time. You're going to make it. It will get easier, and it will get so fun. Right now, find what you can to survive, whether that's a date night once a month or hiring childcare to just give you a break in the middle of the day. Give yourself little breaks to survive the season because this season is really freaking consuming, but it's not forever. It's not. You're going to make it. And I've had the best summer of my life. This is the first summer in my life I didn't want school to start back. And that should be a good sign. Because I'm like, I'm having so much fun with them.
That's a big sign.
Man, we're ready.
100. Normally I'm like, get out of the house.
Totally.
Man, thank you so much for saying that. Like, it's one thing if you haven't walked through that season to say that, but to have the experience and to be able to empathize and to say that. And be on the other side of the bridge.
Well,
I
and
mean,
I think
it
having
carries weight to it.
I think thank you for saying that. I think having kids with challenges really matters too, because it's
Sure.
easy
For
to look at other
sure.
parents as they're like, oh, I don't want someone to be. I'm like, well, your kids are nice and well behaved. Mine are not. So it's like you immediately dismiss other people that seem to be having an easier time because you go, well, that's not my story. There's a lot of variables for sure, but I will say having 3 kids with lots of challenges,
Sure.
and we're still and we're still hitting an age where it just is plain easier. And I'm just so thankful.
That's so
And you will hit that
encouraging.
age.
Yeah,
and I
so
talked to a couple
encouraging.
friends that have kids the same ages. One of them is actually Rachel Cruz. We're still best friends. We catch up all the time. And we were Marco Poloing the other day. And she was like, how's your summer been? And I was like, Rach, it's been like the best summer I've ever had. I don't want it to end. And she Marco's me back. She's like, me too. Our kids are the exact same ages. She goes, we've had an absolute blast. We sleep in, we go to the pool,
Jesus, thank you,
and
Lord.
we're just talking about how fun it is. And I go, it must be the ages because ours are the exact same ages. So our oldest is 10. So we've been a parent for, this is a decade apart. A decade apart is what it has felt like, depending on your ages and stuff. But our youngest is almost 5. And it's like, okay. 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 When you get through the diaper stage and you throw away that baby bag or put it in your attic or whatever, when you hit these milestones of no more car seat, no more baby rear facing car seat, whatever, some of those milestones, man, it just gives you hope of like
bags to take with you every
that's
place you go.
right.
Yeah,
That's right. They carry their own suitcase when you travel or whatever the thing is.
It's
It
really
just
fun
helps.
because our oldest is like getting to that place where she'll pack her own suitcase
that's
and
right.
she wants to be independent and all that stuff. And it's really fun. And it is a glimmer of hope. Like we've
right.
talked about this so many times where it's like, okay, if she's going to do that, then our second wants to do all the same things.
right.
Like
That's
he's
right.
like, oh, Sissy's going to do that. I'm going to do
That's
it
right.
too.
That's right.
And if the older 2 are going to do it, then the younger 2 will follow suit or
Right.
they will help the
Right.
younger 2 or whatever. So it's like we're starting to see a little bit of that come out, but we still have a baby. You know what I
Right.
mean? We still have a 6-month-old where my wife is like, I can't hold this baby anymore. Like, please
right.
take this baby
right.
from me. Like, I just need physical separation.
That's right.
For just for an hour.
That's
or
right.
like, I'm gonna go to TJ Maxx.
That's right.
You got the kid. You know,
It's sensory
totally
overload too
It
for
is
you as a
sensory overload.
parent because I was diagnosed with ADHD in January, and it's like even the noise is so triggering for me. So I'll be like, I have to walk. I can handle like gross stuff and diapers, but it's like the noise, just the sheer noise is so overwhelming to me. The other thing I'll share that has been an absolute game changer is just a parenting technique, and everybody can't do it, so there's a disclaimer.
Sure.
But if you can, split them up. Split them up as much as you can. I was an only child, and I hated being alone, so I always want everybody together all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And so I take for granted that like my whole life was one-on-one time with my mom. When we split them up, and I just take Carter and Matt just takes Conley,
So
and we go
good.
have one-on-one time. First of all, they're angels.
Yeah.
They're angels. They act perfect.
Yes, they do.
They all would be amazing only children, only there's 3 of them together. But it's like,
We say that every time.
Serious?
If it was just that one, it would be amazing.
so easy.
Well, it's
No, I'm
just
just kidding.
they have your undivided attention.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you have
exactly.
one like we do, like,
Yes.
and if you have 3 or
Yes.
4, like,
Yes.
whenever they have one-on-one undivided attention,
Yes.
like that's what they crave.
Yes. And so for like the challenge for you is a lot of times it can feel like, oh my gosh, like they depend completely on you because they have no siblings to
100%.
play with. So that's a challenge in and of
It
itself.
is, yeah.
Yes.
But if you have multiples, if you split them up, they cherish that one-on-one time. And it is an unbelievable break for you. Even if you take 1 out of the picture, it feels like you've taken like 10 out of the picture.
It
Like
is.
it's a compounding
it's a
effect
game
somehow.
changer.
And so we started doing that probably 2 years ago.
That's
We
good.
split up all the time, and we live together. We still have so much time
Right,
together, all of
right.
us. But my mom is in town, or even if Matt takes 1, I take 2, or vice
Yeah,
versa.
right.
My mom is in town. Sometimes we'll hire a babysitter. It just gives you a moment of. It almost feels like you're on vacation because 1 or 2 feels easier than 3 or 4.
Yep.
So do that, and again, these are just techniques to get you through that really hard season when it's really
you're right.
overwhelming.
It is fun. Like I will hear whenever we split them up, usually our second, he's not super talkative when his older sister is around, but when she's out of the picture, it's like la 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 la
Yes.
la la la. You know, his
Yes.
voice comes out
Yes.
a little bit more,
What-
and it's so fun to discover that. Like,
Yeah.
all right, bud, you've got a lot to say.
Yeah.
Like I'm
You've
just
been
gonna
holding it
listen.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. You
What
know.
I've noticed with me when I take the kids one-on-one, I feel like it is those times that I'm building a relationship with them.
That's right.
And when we're all together, I'm keeping them alive. And they're all
So
jockeying for
true.
position.
Yep.
They're all fighting. It's just
Yeah.
somewhat of controlled chaos.
Mhm.
And we're just trying to fulfill all the many needs of food and whatever, clothes, whatever.
Getting
But
them
when
where
it's
supposed to be,
one-on-one, I get to hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
And they tell me about things they like and they don't, and you build a relationship.
Yeah,
I truly feel like
That's right.
the best relationship building moments I've had have been one-on-one. And in the
so
context of the house with 3 littles and ADHD and autism, it's a circus, y'all. It's an actual circus. It doesn't feel like great relationships being built. It's still good. It's family. It's good.
Yeah, of course.
But man, that one-on-one time is awesome.
Yeah.
Man. So, starting your business 2.5 years ago, you're a mom. Like, how do you prioritize your time? Like, what are you putting an emphasis on? What things do you maybe like let fall to the wayside? How are you doing it?
Yeah.
How are you spinning all the plates?
Yeah. So it's funny because this has taken on a whole new meaning since leaving Ramsey, because my book, Take Back Your Time, is the guilt-free guide to life balance. It's all about life balance. It's all about time management. But it looks so different now running my own business from home versus working in an organization where the hours were very set. So I did not even know that I had ADHD until I left Ramsey with all my structures taken away. And I just feel like I'm floating in outer space trying to like do all these things from home, but they all just kind of meld together, and I'm trying to run a business, but then people are screaming. And whereas Ramsey, I mean, I literally had teams and teams and teams that supported me so I could just do what I was best at. And so it has forced me in this season of kind of, honestly, that first year felt like a lot of floundering, or I felt like I was floating in outer space is the best description. I just felt like I was floating. I was like, give me a handlebar to hold on to. I just feel like I'm floating. Every day is kind of runs together. So I left Ramsey. I get diagnosed with ADHD in January of this year, but I even realized last year I need structure. And so structure has been my sanity. So if you're running your own business from home, or even if you're running your business anywhere, you need to set your work schedule. So I set my work schedule. Now I can set it around my kids' hours and what I want to be at and how many hours I want to work. So I do. There's a lot of freedom there. But I have one. It's not just every day is a free-for-all. I have a work schedule.
So good.
Couple other things that I do. I rent an office space. So I leave the house it's only like 5 or 6 days a month. I guess 5 days a month. But I have at least 1 day a week. I know that I can go and do coaching calls and not have anybody yell, especially in the summer when they're home. It's not as much in the school year. I block my schedule. This is very tactical, but I mean, this is very helpful. I block my schedule and batch like things together. So typically, and it's a little different with podcasts because people record on different days. But Mondays are my meeting days, and I just have meetings back to back to back. Tuesdays are my writing days, and I write. I go hole up and write everything I need to write. Podcast, emails, webinars, anything I need to write. Wednesday is coaching or podcasts. And so either I'm recording my podcast or someone else's podcast, or I'm coaching. So that means that Wednesday, I'm camera ready. I get all camera ready. I get my lights set up, and then I'm back to back to back to back. Tuesday, I can have a messy bun and a sweatshirt. I'm writing. No one's going to see me. What's so helpful about this, aside from the efficiency of 1 day I'm camera ready, 1 day I don't have to be, you're not switching gears. And there's really fascinating research on how much productivity we lose in switching gears. So
in the small transitions of the day.
That's it. And we try to do that. Especially if you are an entrepreneur or business owner, you're wearing a million different hats, 100%. Which uses a million different parts of your brain. Going from one side to the other is extremely difficult, more so than you realize it. So if you guys are doing creative work, for example, if you're writing content or dreaming up a new design or something, that's a completely different part of your brain than the accounting. And let's look at the books. And if you try to say, okay, I'm going to have a meeting with my accountant for an hour, and then the next hour do creative work, it's going to take you an hour to get in that zone. It's going to take you an hour to even get in the headspace. So instead, batch entire days. Now, I say at least 2 to 3 hours, but I do entire days. And the entire days thing, so Monday's meeting, Wednesday's recording, and Tuesday's writing. And then Thursday's my catch-up day. So that's like anything that slipped, I catch it on Thursday, and I try to be off on Friday. So I always have a little bit of margin if things need to spill. But practically, this structure has given me this sense of like calm and control of knowing what to expect for the day. It's incredibly efficient because it's back to back to back. Once I'm in the writing zone, I'm really fast. So it's like there's an email, there's a webinar, there's a landing page. I'm fast. I cannot write in 30-minute blocks of time or even an hour block of time. I need to like lots of time. And so I batch like things together. I have entire days dedicated. I have a work schedule that I give myself. And then another practical thing that I do, this is a silly thing to say, but if you have any listeners that work from home or run their business from home.
My wife.
I have gotten honest with myself about what I need to be successful, feel successful, be productive, feel productive. One of those is wearing jeans. So I have jeans on today.
Love it.
If I'm going to work, I put on jeans. It's not because anyone's even going to see me, and it's not because I'm going anywhere,
Yeah.
but jeans tell my brain you're working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a mental framework.
That's funny.
Running shorts, we might go for a run. We might go to the playground. I might go kayak if I'm at the lake house. Like running shorts tell my brain we could be doing lots of fun things right now.
Yep.
We could be cleaning the house, fixing up the deck. Like running shorts tell my brain we're doing something else.
Yep.
Jeans tell my brain we're working. And so I know that sounds
funny.
silly, but I have started putting on jeans and even doing makeup every day. Even on my writing days, it's not going to be the same like camera ready makeup for camera. But I still put on makeup because all these actions tell my brain we are working today.
Well, it's giving you structure,
It
like you're talking about.
does.
It's like there is physical structure.
That's right, and I
aside
feel
from just calendar structure.
Yes, and I feel ready for the day,
Yeah.
and I work better, and I enjoy myself more. So then,
Yeah.
if I do have a pop-up Zoom call, I'm not embarrassed because I'm not ready.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So just some of these simple things, people think, oh, work from home, you're so free, no schedule,
Yep.
no pants. It's like that. We experienced that during COVID, and it's fun for like a week, and then you're like, I feel
Yes.
lost.
It's
What
so
day is
cool.
it? I
It's
need
so
pants. Like,
Yeah.
Yes,
so you
exactly.
just give yourself. I tell my coaching group this all the
Like a
time.
dirty old bum during COVID. I just-
Yeah, all of us were. But I tell my coaching group this all the time. Give yourself what you need to be successful. So write down, what do I need to be successful?
Yep.
What do I need to be productive? I need pants. I need makeup. I need a schedule. I need a quiet place. I cannot.
Yep.
There was
Yep.
one day I was writing and Mary Grace kept coming in and I got so annoyed with her. And then I thought, what else would she do?
Yeah.
Her mom is right there.
Yeah.
She's 4 years old and she sees me and she wants to be with me.
Right.
If I want to work and don't want to be interrupted, I need to go somewhere else. So now I leave my house and go to my rented office or go to a coffee shop to work to avoid that. I mean, I'm setting her up to fail and me up to get frustrated.
That's right.
So make a list, practically. Make a list of what you need to be productive.
Yep.
Feel productive,
Yep.
be successful, feel successful,
Yep.
and then give yourself that.
Yep.
So it's not restraint. I'm actually giving myself what I need to feel good about what I'm going to do that day.
Yeah.
That's really
So
good.
yeah, I've just put some of that in place.
Really appreciate the practical side of things, like how you approach your day to day. So
Yeah, I also have, I don't know when this comes out, but I have a morning routine that I do. And this morning routine is like, I've done it for years. And when I do this morning routine, I feel in control. And when I don't, I don't. And so when I was at Ramsey, I launched my book, Take Back Your Time. And I had this idea, one of my many ideas to put in front of Dave, of a sister product that's a planner, that's a morning routine that helps you do what I teach you to do and take back your time.
Yeah.
So anyway, I left Ramsey. That never got approved. I mean, I never did it there, obviously, because I left. And so about 6 months ago, I was like, you know what? Because I was feeling lost in this being home and working from home. I was like, I want to start doing that planner again. And so I did. It doesn't exist, right? Like I would just have to do it in my journal with all, but I knew the steps I would go through.
Sure.
And so I started doing it, and then I was like, I'm going to create it. So I created it, and that comes out this fall.
That's
and so
exciting.
start your
That's
day
awesome.
planner if anybody wants that. But you check in with yourself. So like as an example, and you could do this in your journal, you could do it anywhere. But like I check in with myself and journal how I'm doing before I ever set my goals for the day. Because I think sometimes we say, hey, on Tuesday and Thursday I'm going to work out.
Yeah.
And then Monday night your baby doesn't sleep.
Yep.
You get no sleep, and you wake up Tuesday morning, you're like, oh,
There's
I feel like
no
I'm
way.
supposed to work, right?
Yeah, right.
So it gives context to your day.
Yeah.
So maybe you write, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so energized. I'm so excited. I'm going to knock out all this stuff today. I'm feeling great. I've got big plans.
Yep.
Maybe you're like, my baby didn't sleep last night. I'm exhausted. So when you get to so then you go, what am I proud of from yesterday? That's again reflecting on what I'm doing right versus constantly feeling like I'm never doing enough. Here's the 2 things I didn't get to on my to-do list.
good.
Write down what you're proud of. Write down what you're grateful for. Write down what you're praying for. Write down how you're taking care of yourself today. By the time I get to actually setting, here's my top 5 priorities for the day, I have unbelievable context
It's really good.
to how I'm feeling
Yeah, that's really
and
good.
what's going on
love it.
versus, oh, well, I thought my goals were, 3 weeks ago or even on Sunday, my goals were this. So I guess I got to hold my feet to the fire and beat myself up when I don't do it.
Right.
Our days are different every day, how we feel, what's
Yep.
going on, what's important.
Yeah.
So just starting my day by checking in with myself and then going through some of these prompts has given me context to my priorities and my goals.
Yeah.
Because I tell people this all the time. Do you know what goals are with no context? They're just added pressure.
Yeah.
And no one needs more pressure.
That's good.
Give context to it.
You just literally pinpointed in this moment, this disconnect I've had in different seasons, like setting goals and like, in the morning opening up a planner or whatever. And it's like, yeah, it's added pressure, but it doesn't have context to the day before or the night before. And it makes me feel like I'm behind.
Right.
Yeah.
And like
Right.
I'm I'm not where I should be.
Right. Well, it's interesting because we have a lot of things we do as a culture. Like we set New Year's resolutions in January.
Yeah.
Okay. Right now, the time of this recording, it's almost August. How many of you, like, your life is exactly like it was in January?
Right.
No one.
Yeah. Right.
No one.
Right.
And so a lot of people, a lot of even business coaches or life coaches will tell you, you just got to grit, just got to like, grit your teeth and bear it. Like you got to hustle and discipline and discipline. I take the complete opposite approach.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm a person of faith. I'm walking by the Spirit. And the Lord, as we said, will take us on a winding road.
That's right.
And there may be something that He is teaching you or taking you through.
That's right.
That all those goals are out the window, or maybe they're just slightly different.
Yeah,
and
they're
so
not the Lord's goals for you.
That's exactly right. So the way that I teach it, just to give some tactical structure to this for anybody listening, I teach setting goals and priorities in 3 different time formats. First by season, then by week, then by day. So my goals for the fall season are, or my priorities. Here's my top 5 priorities for the season ahead. I typically do fall season, spring season, and summer. My summer priorities are like be home, have fun, go to the pool. I get to sit down now. I'm having
summer
ever. It's not hustle and grind. Whereas fall, it's like, okay, we're going to get in gear. I've got big launches coming up. Yeah. So those are the seasons of my life, but you can do whatever works for you. A lot of people follow the school calendar though. So fall, spring, and summer. So we set it by season. Here's what I want to focus on in the season ahead. Then within that season, you set them by week. So every Sunday night, my husband and I sit down. We say, what do you have going on this week? What that means is, what do you have going on that's a little weird? And my husband might say, hey, I've got a happy hour with all my coworkers that's 4 to 6. So he's going to be home late. Yeah. And, I'm traveling to Dallas on Thursday. So we've got to have, piece it together with childcare. We're just connecting on what's going on that week outside of the normal rhythms of our life. And so so then I'll say for the week ahead, here's what I really want to get done. Okay. And then each day I do this morning routine where I say, okay, within that, did the baby sleep? Is there something going on? Is there some, oh my gosh, I had a whole day of a shoot schedule that got canceled. Now this is opened up. So instead I'm going to redirect over here. So when you do that, you're constantly reassessing what's right. And so the premise of my whole book, Take Back Your Time, is life balance isn't doing everything for an equal amount of time. It's about doing the right things at the right time. So the best question you can ask yourself is what's right now? What's right now?
So good.
And when you constantly assess that each season, each week, each day, then you give yourself the clarity about what is right instead of beating yourself up for what you thought was going to be right. Good. But you also give yourself permission to focus on it and be proud of it when you do it instead of feeling guilty. I think a lot of people just walk around feeling guilty all day and there's no basis for it. It's just, you're just not doing what's right. Just own what's right and do what's right, but you've got to know what that is. So just check in with yourself and say, what's right now?
Right.
That's so good and so practical. It's like,
so I know.
Simple. Yeah. But
so you got that planner coming out this fall.
Yeah, it comes out end of August. It's called the Start Your Day Planner. And so, actually, if anybody wants a digital download, you can get like just a free version of it. Okay. The e-version is free. Just go to startyourdayplanner.com. You can download it and like try the system. I would have brought you guys one, but I don't have it yet. It's coming from the printer in a few weeks.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah,
we'll download.
We'll have to get it.
Yeah. No,
that's awesome. So,
I mean, I'm already thinking like, man, that would really help for us. Like we were talking the other day about fall goals for us. Like some big things that we want to try to accomplish, test out or whatever. But then break that down to week and break that down to day.
Yeah. It also leads you through some prompts of like when you're planning your season, because the planner is designed by quarter, so it's 12, 13 weeks. The actual hard copy planner. And so at the beginning, when you're planning your season, I ask you some questions like, okay, what are some boundaries you need to set this season? Yeah. So like, for example, in summer, my husband and I love to go to the lake on the weekend. Yeah. So what's a boundary we need to set to go to the lake on the weekend? We don't do summer sports. Yeah. It's so practical, but you have to say it out loud. If not, in April, you're like, oh, everybody's signing up for baseball. Okay, I'm in. Right. And then you're like, oh, we've got games. We can't go to the lake. Yep. Just thinking through, that's right. What do we want this season to look like? What are our goals, priorities? What are our boundaries? Mm-hmm. Hey, we're not going to travel for holidays this year. Or like this, like one that I said, this is very real time. We're happening right now with fall. In the spring and last year, felt like air traffic control between therapies and sports. And we only did one sport per child, but with 3 kids, you're all over creation. Yep. This fall, everybody's signing up for all the sports, all the soccer team, all the things. I'm not signing up for anything. Mm-hmm. We're doing just one activity on Saturday for my daughter and son, which is dance and theater, and that's it. Nice. And so every afternoon, I'm really excited to have a routine where we come home, we do homework, we do some chores. The anxious generation teaches all this personal responsibility, then we just play. And then we coast into dinner time versus feeling like we're coming in scrambling with sports bags into dinner time.
Or eat real quick, I gotta get out the door.
And that's a personal choice that maybe for someone else they want to do all the sports.
But again, it's a seasonal thing.
It's a seasonal. This season, I just want to simplify. I don't want to be driving all over creation.
Right.
I want to come home after school and play and enjoy the fall weather.
Exactly.
So a lot of it is just slowing down enough to think about these things.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, yeah, this is what we should do. Then you can do it. But just taking the time out of your craziness of your day to decide what is the priority for the season? What do we want the season to look like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Man. Wow. So planners coming out. Is there anything else on the horizon that listeners need to know about?
Oh, thanks for asking. I have a masterclass. When does this air?
I mean, CBD.
Soon?
Okay.
Soonish?
Okay.
We'll say early fall.
Okay. Because I want to like give you something that's relevant to what's going on.
Sure, yeah.
I'm doing a workshop, if this airs in time. I'm doing a workshop in August called the Guilt-Free Goals Reset.
Okay.
And that is really in line with what we're talking about because we all set goals in January. We've completely ignored them and abandoned them. And so I'm giving people permission to reset their goals and guide them through how to set goals for the fall ahead and finish the year how they want to. That's totally free. It's August 19th, 20th, and 21st. And you can just sign up for that at ChristyWright.com. It's the Guilt-Free Goals Reset. So that would be fun for them to join.
Awesome. Man, so the planner, the reset, your book is out. It's been out. What other resources do you have? Maybe even for moms who are in business as well.
So my podcast on the Christy Wright podcast channel, I have Get Your Hopes Up, and that's all about getting closer to God, and that's every Monday. But I also have a business boot camp series that runs in the off weeks through the fall and in the spring. It's a seasonal series show, but I give people practical business advice as well. Of course, through a faith-based lens, but it's a lot of that business content that I've always loved to teach and bringing that back as well. So,
awesome.
Thanks for asking.
We love to, be connectors if we can.
Yeah, thank you.
Help, if people are listening and like, I need help, or like, my life feels scattered. How can I make it feel not as scattered?
Yes, I feel that. I teach this because I live it every day because it's hard for me too.
Yeah. So I know, my wife runs a business, and I feel like I'm watching it firsthand, and like we're talking about this is a part of our week. We talk about our businesses and stuff, but it's even for her to have resources would be helpful. So
Yeah, sure.
yeah, awesome.
So ChristyWright.com.
Yes.
Right? And then you're on Instagram.
At Christy B. Wright.
Christy B. Wright.
Yep.
Are you a TikToker?
No.
Are you on the TikTok?
The TikTok. www. No. Since leaving Ramsey, when I have to do all this myself, I have really pared down even social, even Instagram and Facebook.
Yes.
I just do less and less of it. I mean, I do it sometimes, like on a cuff, off the cuff. But it's not a big priority in my business because honestly, just bandwidth. I'm like,
you're a face-to-face person.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it seems
I do
like
love
you're-
it.
Yeah,
That's awesome.